Hey, it's Derrick, and welcome to this week's podcast. A very exciting interview with two senior design leads, directors at Nothing, the tech company that, if you've been following along with my pages at all, you'll see I've reviewed the Ear Stick, I've reviewed the Ear 2 as well, and I just wanted to share with you before I jumped into the conversation that this is exciting for me because companies of a stature, tech companies, don't talk to people like me because it's so secretive and there's so many layers. And to be able to access these people and ask stupid questions about things that I'm interested in terms of like how to make these products, what goes into it, the challenges, what do you think about in making audio devices for the consumer is fascinating to me. So when I had the opportunity to be able to speak to them, I obviously jumped at the chance. And I hope that you find it interesting because this isn't just like, if you're not into tech, it's not just something where you're like, okay, well, I don't know about these features and it doesn't really matter to me. It's more about the process of thinking about how to create a seamless, well-designed, original product in a market that we all kind of interact with every day and put into our ears and don't think much about. So from that perspective, I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think that both of the guys were really articulate in terms of how they think about things. And when I tried to ask them things that I thought I knew what the answer was, there was never the answer. So I hope you enjoy it. The interview with Nothing. Enjoy. What's up, everyone? It's Derrick Gee Speaks Volumes, and I'm very, very excited to have a very unique discussion on the podcast today. The theme is, which I'm introducing to you guys probably for the first time, is the intangible experience of listening. And I have two very, very important and impressive people in the, I guess, tech industry is the easiest way to describe it. Adam Bates and Tom Ridley from Nothing. Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Derrick.
Hey, Derrick. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you.
Welcome along. I just want to say and introduce what we're doing today, if I may, which is, anyone has seen some of the content I've made. I've been working a little bit with Nothing, the brand that's been around since 2020, which has introduced to the world really exciting technology, including phones and earphones that have kind of made huge waves in the tech industry. And if anyone knows anything about me, I'm really excited by people doing things that are interesting and new. And Nothing is very much in the conversation of new and exciting things because I see a lot of content online, especially about you guys wanting to do things differently and making an impact in a different way. And what I find really special about this opportunity is that for myself and listeners like ourselves, we don't usually get to speak to people that make these types of products. It's usually very walled garden. It's like, here's the thing. It's like just created out of this ethereal nothing and enjoy. And you guys have been really open about the design process, about the thinking behind it, the ideals behind it. You're based out of London, and it's really cool at this stage of your business that you guys want to share as much as you do. And I jump at the opportunity to be able to speak to you guys because it's very rare. So again, thank you for joining us. And I'd just love to, first of all, have you guys introduce yourselves and what you do at Nothing, if you could.
Sure. My name's Tom. I'm a designer. And I suppose today I look after the kind of interactions and experiences broadly in a kind of hardware sense. That's lots of button interactions, LEDs, famously the glyphs. I spend a lot of my time working on, and the sounds that accompany them as well. So that kind of interaction of sound and motion and light and interaction. And the way I got there was through product design, industrial design, and engineering. I met Adam when we worked at Dyson together, which obviously another massive tech company from this part of the world. And I guess Adam actually said to me, we've got all these products that do all these different things. They behave in different ways. You use them in different ways. there's different sort of interaction models. Some of them, be that presses or long presses or switches or catches or all of these different things, and also they respond in different ways. Be that LEDs or screens or eventually sound as well. And I kind of joined Adam's team to begin to look after that. And then I suppose that journey has taken me through into digital UX UI. I spent a few years sort of getting my head into that and enjoyed that very much. And now here at Nothing, it feels like an amalgamation of all of those years of experience, as well as my own interest and experience in kind of music and audio production, which has been a big, quite separate but big part of my life. That at various moments when sound has become a part of my work, that's kind of entered the workplace in it a few times. But so yeah, it feels like a real combination of everything I've ever done, really. So it's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I'm Adam. I'm the design director here at Nothing. So my job, really, there's a few parts to my job. One is to build a design team here in London. There wasn't one when I joined, so it's finding people like Tom and other members that we have, and figuring out how we can have a design department in London that fits between the Stockholm part with teenage engineering and the Shenzhen part, which is where the manufacture takes place for Nothing products. So really that was the first task, being the kind of first design employee for kind of industrial design in the UK, was building this team, finding a studio, and starting to build a culture. And my background, as Tom said, we met at Dyson. My background, I started working as what they called a design engineer. They called everyone a design engineer that joined. Yeah. And you did just that. You didn't see much separation between design and engineering. It was very much about solving the problems and making the prototypes yourself, doing the CAD, coming up with the ideas. It was a really great apprenticeship into how to develop products. And then the second part of my career there was actually building an in-house design team. So this is my second crack at building a team. At Dyson, we sort of found our way and kind of created this merge of different kind of designers and engineers and model makers, which really looked at the products as a whole. So not separating anything that was software based from anything that was physical, not separating audio from mechanical, really looking at the whole thing as a complete experience, including packaging, taking things out of the box, all of these things that are separate disciplines, quite rightly, but really trying to bring that together, because there is only one user that is buying this product and taking it out of the box. So we really want to, both at Dyson and here, really wanted to create an experience for that person that really feels thought through and feels that it all works, for the kind of the brand and the company and what you stand for. You really want every small detail to feel right. So that was a kind of discovery there, really. And I did some freelance and consulting work for a few years, but then met the guys at Teenage Engineering and found out about this opportunity, which was just very, very exciting to basically start fresh with a tech company. And the goal of the tech company being to bring some excitement back and not just follow some of the big guys and try to do something different and have a bit of fun. So that's it, really. So I spend my time working with Tom and other members of the team on physical design, digital design, audio, bit of engineering. So all of these things, trying to make products with the team in Stockholm and the team in Shenzhen.
It must be a very exciting time to be in product design and in a company like this, because I think that the consumer is a lot more sophisticated these days as to what they want out of products how they want to experience them. Everyone is very used to, by and large, because companies like Apple elevated set the bar and the tone to a place where everyone expects the box to be presented really nicely. Everyone expects the thing to open a certain way, and that raises the bar, challenges everyone. And what's exciting when I first experienced my first Nothing product is that it felt new, it felt different, it felt exciting. And Tom mentioned the glyphs, and for people who don't know, in the phone 1 and phone 2, the back of the phone has these LED, I guess, strips or lights that that light up depending on different interactions. The Dyson experience, I guess, speaks to that holistic, because Dyson again is that brand that is as much about the effectiveness and efficiency of the product as it is how nice it looks in your home, how desirable it is, what the marketing is like. I just want to, for the people that aren't, the podcast is on video most places, the people that are able to see this on camera, but who can't, I'm holding up the latest products from you guys, which is the Ear 2, which is Bluetooth earphones in a transparent case. And that is primarily a topic that I really want to unpack, because it's such an interesting product from a design and interaction point of view. But I guess before we do, Nothing as a brand to you guys, what do you live by? What do you when you walk in the door and you have to solve a problem, what is the Nothing way of thinking about things that you have to always check yourself that we're not them, or we're not this and that? This is what we're trying to achieve differently.
I think there's a few things here. First of all, it's evolving, and you start with a kind of blurry idea of what something is, and it comes into focus the more you cross-check your ideas and challenge each other. And we're constantly doing that all the time. As a team, we're constantly looking at other products and looking at things from the past. And whenever we're out and about, we're always looking at things and discussing. And what we're doing in that process is kind of refining our thinking. But I guess the key things with it are we always want to do something fresh, and we always want to do something that has an element of fun to it, and we always want to do something that kind of improves on something. So in these early days, we're very small, so we have to be really smart about what we pick and what we can actually make an impact with. But I think we're always, by our nature, a lot of the people that work at Nothing, and particularly in the creative area, they're not people that want to mimic other people, and they're not people that want to look at the best practice and repeat that. They're people that want to challenge things, because we want to keep ourselves interested. We want to, we don't want to get bored. We don't want to just be kind of creating a production line of repetitive stuff. So for us, it's great that other people do things really well, and we have a lot of admiration for lots of companies. And we think we can do things another way.
The thought that I was simmering on was I guess you mentioned the kind of quality bar that Apple established, or has established over the last 20 or 30 years. And it does feel to me that lots of other companies have begun to match that kind of quality expectation to the point where it, to the untrained eye, maybe some products are indistinguishable or packaging looks quite similar. But I guess what I'm excited about, and what I try to think about every day when we're here, is like what's a new lane of design forwardness, like, because everyone seems to be in Apple's wake, in terms of color or finish or shape or how the corners look, or just it's like they set a standard and everyone's sort of following. And actually, there's many versions of beautiful design that can exist. They don't all have to be a sort of Dieter Ramsian modernist expression. Like what's an alternative, parallel universe of design forwardness, and that's what I'm quite excited about, and that, and you know, we'll get into it, but that I guess in the sound as well, like, you know, that's phone 1 particularly was starkly different to any other phone that I think has ever existed. And so that's kind of, I'm really excited to carve our own lane, and maybe we'll see people in our wake in a few years' time. But that's kind of one of the things I think about.
How do you know? Because, you know, I've been a creative background in graphic design and various creative direction things over the years, and I find it an interesting challenge of how do you guys know when or identify when something is different and special and something is in your process different for the sake of it and therefore not as valuable?
I'd say that's fairly intuitive. Right? We collectively, you know, Adam's very effectively picked a group of really confident creatives, like people with a lot of experience, who an experience gives you a confidence in your own taste and opinion, right? And you know, I think at that point, you know, obviously we make stuff that we're like, no, that's not it. But you begin to notice when it is it.
I do think it's hard though. The thing you raise is really challenging to hear that voice, especially amongst, you know, the day-to-day of life, because that intuition is this thing that is not always there every second of the day, and you have to try to tune into it and create the atmosphere that allows you to tune into it. So different people do that in different ways. Some people are a little bit more kind of logical, you know, this works because of this, and this. And other people start the other side, which is you feel it here, and maybe then you can post-rationalize it. And we're slightly more in that second camp. We've got to feel it. And there's times when maybe you can't trust that. So you have to do many things to help you to trust that intuition. You know, things like sometimes you need to just put something to the side for a few days and not look back at it. And sometimes you need to show it to people, you know, other members of the team, and you're asking their opinion, but you're also listening to how you feel when they give their opinion. So this is a very kind of floaty sort of really difficult, unscientific, it feels, thing. And especially when you're in a company that is moving very fast and there are lots of things going, really part of the job, part of my job is to try and make this bubble here in the design team where people can tune in that way. And so I guess with all those things put together, that's roughly how we get there.
I really like that answer, because it's not like, well, the answer is this. It's like, I don't know. We know, but we kind of don't, and you kind of feel it. And you know, I can tell that it resonated with you, that question, because you see brands that are like, we're just going to make this product and it's like so out there, but it's not in an innovative way. It's just because no one else has done it. But it's like, but is it, does anyone want it? Is it exciting? Does it actually make sense? And the fact that you guys have, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have 2 products, a phone and earphones.
2 product lines at the moment, yeah.
2 product lines, yeah. And you're not going out there with hundreds of different things and hundreds of different really confusing numbers and codes to kind of, you know, introduce the brand to you, which is part of that human experience that I guess you guys are very much in touch with. And to talk more about this Ear 2, which I think is, you know, the primary objective of like this intangible experience of listening is the things that you guys think about that we as consumers would not. So I guess the first question is, to you guys, what makes a good wireless earphone product?
The fundamental thing, it's got to sound good, and it's got to kind of it's this product that you have. I mean, you know, I have mine in my pocket every day. I'm on a bike or a scooter, and then I'm on the train, and then I'm on the tube. Mm-hmm. You're walking around. It's with you this whole time. It's got to fit with you. So fundamentally, I think it's got to sound good, and it's got to kind of get out of the way so that you can listen to your music or listen to your podcasts or audiobooks or whatever you like to do, or make calls. But you only experience that sound quality if it fits in with your life. And so there are all these aspects of the steps that you have to take when you own a product like this. You've got to charge it, you've got to put it in and out of pockets or bags, you've got to get the earbuds out of the case, put them in, they've got to stay in, they've got to be comfortable, the battery needs to last long enough to fit your needs. If someone phones you, you need to be able to hear them clearly, they need to be able to hear you clear. There's kind of all these things that you have to step through when you're designing it. But maybe for me, the fundamentals are, it's got to sound good and it's got to fit in with your life.
I'm interested in the fact that I've actually got an ear 2 here. I've got the new black variant that we've just released. I think it's the most intimate product. It's the only one that you put in your body a little bit. And it's one of the only ones that is sort of on your face as well, right? So we talk quite a lot about how the early days of Apple owning an iMac said something about you. It was a product that was for creatives, and it in some way expressed a disinterest in the status quo and a boldness to own something different and actually spend quite a lot of money on something different as well. So it was a confident thing to have. And I hope that Ear 2 is that as well right now. AirPods and all these other brands are so ubiquitous, it doesn't really mean much. So not only has it got to feel good to me, but it does express something outwards about me. Even like maybe we're not quite there yet, but I wonder if these headphones might come to define a style of music. Like, might it be picked up by a certain group of people that are in a community or share a certain taste? And I don't know, in the way that Beats, I guess, was a hip hop brand, because of who started it. So, those kinds of things are quite interesting. And that's not necessarily the case with other tech products. If you think of the portfolio of an Apple or a Samsung, but with headphones, are quite an expressive product. So,
I loved what you were saying about that, the function of these things. It has to fit into your life. And earphones used to just be a speaker and a wire, and then it added a microphone, and now there's batteries, and you could lose it, and you might not be able to, connect it or pair it. And there's all these other considerations. What did you worry about when you launched this first product of how people were going to interact with it? Were there kind of tension points where gosh, my mum needs to get this, or I don't want people to misinterpret this the wrong way, and therefore it's going to not work at all and fall flat on its face? Did you have any experience like that?
You always worry about that kind of thing. You always there is a lot of worrying really when you're developing a product. If you really care about anything, you do worry about it. And so all those things you said, for sure, we're really hard on ourselves. And also when we see feedback and reviews and things like that, we do look at that and take it really seriously. And when people in the community feed things back, we don't just do a direct, okay, people are asking for this, so we'll do this. But we do listen to people and try and understand the need behind it and see if that's something we can address. So for sure, we're always worrying about those things. And in particular, I walk through my life really acutely aware of how clear things are and how easy they are to use. And it's an impossible thing to ignore. So we have to, it's really our kind of duty to try to do our best with all those things. So we definitely worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And obviously we've talked a lot, and we will talk a lot about the sort of more floaty creative stuff and the ephemeral stuff and the stuff that's a bit hard to pin down. But there's obviously a period in the process of designing one of these, and in my world, it's the interactions. How does it work? there is a rigor to it, and there's pages and pages of flowcharts and conversations about logic, priority, and what happens if you hold this and press that, and this is flashing, and there's a time for imaginative thinking, but there's also a time to really be quite robust, and we want these things to be fun and expressive and interesting, but there's a kind of base level of like, this needs to work super well. Otherwise, there's no point in doing the fun stuff if people don't get there, right? Because they're annoyed and they don't buy it. So
I love the user testing of especially parents or people that aren't technologically savvy, and they will, or almost like children, they will almost immediately break the thing in ways that you don't expect immediately.
It's incredible. Like, yeah, I mean, Adam and I have done like hundreds of user testing sessions over the last decade or so, and even after doing it for quite a long time, I am gobsmacked by some of the things that people try to do, and that's not an insult, and if anything, it's an insult to my work that I didn't catch it sooner. But it's so important to test stuff because you just can't predict what people would do. Humans are chaotic. So yeah, we obviously test stuff rigorously,
and also their lives are chaotic as well.
Yeah.
There's kind of it's all very well when you're sitting in a studio with some music on and you're thinking something through, but in real life, with something like earbuds, you're trying to figure out which platform you need to be on. Yeah. Someone's calling you.
Please mind the gap.
Exactly. There's all these things. Someone's asking to move past you.
Yeah.
There's
You've
just
got 3 bags.
Yeah, that's when it needs to work. Yeah. That's when it needs to be clear. When you're almost, people are in fight or flight almost.
Yeah. I'd love to talk more about, I know we've kind of teased on it a lot, about these features and designs that we don't as consumers generally recognize. I guess I can list them off, from buttons to sounds to LEDs to packaging. I guess let's start with sound. How do you figure out how a brand should sound?
I think, well, the way I have approached it, and I've designed sound for maybe 4 or 5 brands at this point, is actually starting with not how, but sort of what. So, what is the information that this has to convey, and in what environment or scenario is this being conveyed? Because just like like an icon that tries to work too hard on a piece of software, and it's really complex, but it's also that big. And you're like, I literally don't know what that is. And then even like down the side of Photoshop or something, and there's a few that I can't remember what they are. I have to hover over them. And in a similar way, you can't get that much information across in a sound. You can say that thing you were doing worked, that thing you were doing didn't work. Good thing happened, bad thing happened. Sort of FYI thing happened. And maybe a few shades of goodness and badness therein. And then maybe there's a few more like, like a slightly more expressive sound, like the ANC sounds on headphones are usually fairly sort of, it's a bit of a moment, like, the world's all gone quiet or whatever. So, there's a few moments where maybe you have a bit more fun, or in a car, sometimes the engine start has a bit of a fanfare. But broadly, there's not loads of scope to convey that information. So yeah, usually it's starting just mapping out, if it's in a product, for example, what that range of stuff is and how bad does it get. Like if you do all your badness on Bluetooth's turned off, and then you need to do I've caught fire. You need to make sure you've got enough headroom to be worse, right? And similarly to be better. So you kind of really need to understand the kind of range of stuff that we're trying to communicate, and then just kind of try to design a bunch of sort of not even sounds at this point, but just sort of events or melodies or like little sort of sequences that are different enough that they're recognizable as distinct things that are happening. And then how it sounds is almost the last thing. So, you can maybe wrap that in a more sort of plinky piano-like thing. That's kind of what Google tend to do, or maybe more of a sort of round sine wavy kind of thing, which is what sort of Bang & Olufsen tend to do. And, there's sort of various ways you might sort of shape that event to sound a certain way and give a certain feeling.
Yeah, it's quite a good way you split that, because that's kind of the way I think about it as well. It's like there's this real cold functional thing. It must work. It must be clear. And then the voice itself is this thing that it is almost. I mean, it's almost like a pure creative exercise where you just start getting a sense of that could be us. And also you have to be aware of what other people are doing as well, because you need to know if you're encroaching on those different areas. And so there's this, you want it to express the same thing as everything else, the stuff we were talking about earlier. When you hear it, you want it to make that gut feeling take you to a similar place to when you see the product. But they are two layers.
They are. And I guess in terms of, excuse me, in terms of what we've done on Ear 2 specifically, we don't want the sounds to get, I mean, this is a music product, right? There are products that aren't music products, for example, some of the stuff we did at Dyson, but this is a music product. So, there's other sound information happening, which has its own pitch and its own timbre and its own rhythm, and and as well as sort of environmental sound. Are you in a city? Are you in a quiet home? There's all kinds of stuff happening, and really, we just want to get out of the way. So when we do present an audio moment, we want it to sound like us. We want to be, oh yeah, that's nothing. They're telling me something. But then be humble. Like, just get out of the way. So these are all very short sounds. And actually the sort of brief that we established with the guys at Teenage Engineering was, what if it's like little insects in your ears, quite short and sharp and clicky and quite percussive. There's not really much like melodic tonal information in these. If you stretch them out, you probably could infer a pitch, but they're so short that you really can't. And I suppose, and then lastly, obviously that we celebrate engineering through these, our transparent industrial design. It's quite a technical looking product. You can, to some extent, see the guts of it, see the innards of it, and you can see the kind of details of it, the sort of minute shapes and gaps and, parts that make these things up. And so, that feels to us like quite sharp, precise, precision sounds. These aren't woolly, fluffy, pillowy products. These are quite precise and engineered products. So the sounds, to some extent, speak to that kind of aesthetic as well. And all of that together kind of is how we ended up where we did.
It definitely resonates with me as someone who's used the product, that there's a crispness, there's a sharpness to it. I feel like in many ways, I've perhaps not just you guys, but a lot of companies recognize that there are certain human sounds that we know represent certain things, like ascending usually means up. There's often is the case with many brands, there's a kind of like slow downward, which usually means there's something with the battery these days. There's a thud that usually means, oh, that's kind of what it means. Oh, something. Is that true? Do you feel like that as much as you think about this stuff, that almost like if you stub your toe, you know what sound it's going to make? That when you design sounds, that it's got to have that kind of intuition where people kind of hear it and go like, I think I know what it's trying to tell me.
Yeah. And, a one that I've sort of, an example I've used before is like if you pick up the phone, at least in the UK, and I think Australia too, people go, hello. And actually, if you think of some of the sounds that you get on like a video call service, when you pick it up or someone else picks up, it's usually a no. And whether that's the sound designer doing that deliberately or intuitively, I don't know. But that's definitely an analog that comes up, right? And so I think, it's not, maybe it's not quite skeuomorphism. I guess skeuomorphism might be the literal representation of a sound, like the old AOL closing door when you log out. But it is riffing on some of those familiar kind of patterns that we have in the world, I think. And I think that it's good to be aware of that. It doesn't mean we always have to respect them, but knowing what they are and then either leaning into it or leaning away from it is a helpful thing to know.
It makes sense. There's certain like rhythms that we're used to. Are you adverse to, at nothing, the human voice? I know that in the early era of Bluetooth, it told you everything. Power on, power off. There's this like ethereal, floating, usually female voice in your ear telling you everything that's got volume up, volume down. It has the industry evolved? Is it a company decision? How does it seems like the voice is is it the customer that's evolving that doesn't need that as much? I
think it's perhaps more of a technical constraint in that the text to speech, so like the synthetic voices that obviously like your Google Assistant and Siri are pretty good now, but like unless you have a processor with internet access, text to speech stuff is usually pretty bad. Like it sounds kind of robotic, and there's, I think some sort of early car systems would say who's calling and it would be like a kind of weird robot thing. So they just don't sound very good. The alternative is to, of course, just record voice audio, but then we have languages to contend with, and we sell our products in more and more countries every time we release a product. So it's kind of pretty quickly becomes quite unfeasible to support multiple languages. And actually not only kind of memory constraints, but either you need to know where that product is going, like where is that box going to, so I can set the language in the factory, but then that can't be sold in another territory, or users then need to have an additional step to select which territory they're in, which some products do, and it can be fine, but then you probably need a screen, and then you probably need a bunch more buttons. So it's a problem that cascades quite quickly. So I'd also argue that like if it really needs that, maybe the product's trying to do too much. Like that's not going to be universally true, but like it's probably quite a helpful constraint to par back the ambitions of control and feedback, because like we've talked about, like if you're in a chaotic real world environment, you don't need your headphones telling you that transparency mode is on. Like I just need to not get hit by a car, so can you just do it, please? So maybe it's part of that as well.
I would definitely say though, I wouldn't rule it out, because there's certain things that you were talking through there, certain examples that I was getting a little bit excited about, because partly, I guess even in the question, it's, everyone's kind of phased it out now. Everyone's decided. So as soon as you hear that, you start thinking, well, okay, so does that mean there's a bit of space then to have some fun? I also got a little bit nostalgic about those car sounds that you're talking about, where it's kind of bad. This machine is talking to you. There's something in that that's interesting. So I guess
it's quite nostalgic.
Yeah, I guess these are sort of the little things sometimes that we hang on to a little bit and think, well, should we just try some stuff? But I think it's the way you do it. Sometimes if you're doing it from a purely rational perspective, it's probably not the way to go. But if you can get something fresh out of it, I guess it's the same with the glyphs on the phone. If you were doing, if you were just thinking what is a purely functional glyph system, you'd probably just have, 10 LEDs lined up, labeled, and each one's telling you a different thing.
Yeah.
And for us, that wasn't exciting, because there's more to it than that. We're trying to create something new, and we're trying to get away from the standard thought pattern with it. So there's kind of things there that, depending on how you look at it, might be interesting. So I suppose in that way, you almost wouldn't rule anything out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
It does seem that way in design, doesn't it? Where like things become so refined. At a certain point, it all shifts, doesn't it? It goes from minimalist to maximalist. It goes, completely.
Don't you? It's like punk or something. It's punk comes out of just everything just getting samey in middle of the road, and kind of, all these masterpieces have been made and things, and someone just wants to explode the whole thing and just do everything opposite. And I guess there's that sort of impulse, which is interesting.
I've never really spoken to someone in your industry about packaging and how you think about that and how one should think about that. One could say it's a box, but we all know, like I alluded to, or I mentioned earlier, that kind of the theater of the older, or perhaps still Apple boxes taking forever, sometimes too long, because of the suction. So when you guys think about nothing and packaging, how do you go about that? What's the challenge? How do you want to approach it?
I mean, there's definitely the same impulse as everything else we've talked about so far, which is what can we do to make it fresh? And with packaging, it works a little bit like Tom described with the system sounds. There's two levels. There's a really functional level, which is you need to transport this product from the factory to the user's home so that they receive a product that is not damaged and it's protected, and it's got all the right extra bits in there. It's got cables if you need cables. It's got a manual. It's got your legals. It's got all these things you need. And then there's other things like in the production process and the supply chain process, sometimes you need to do quality checks at different phases. So you need to design all these things in so that it can be in a warehouse somewhere, and then you unbox a few to do checks. Then with some products that we've worked on in the past, you actually ship sub-assembly parts to different territories, and then they do the final assembly into the final box in a different territory. And that means that you can avoid what Tom described earlier with the language thing, which is maybe you've got something in one country, but you actually want to move to another country and sell there. You can then put your different power adapter in and your different manual if you have different user guides for different territories. So there is this really purely thing. It's got to go through shipping. It's got to have different levels of moisture. It's got to be able to fit neatly onto a crate and a pallet in an efficient way so that you're kind of not overspending on space. You haven't got lots of thin air in your kind of shipping containers. So a lot of packaging that you see is being designed specifically to nest neatly into shipping containers because the costs add up when you're shipping, hundreds of thousands, millions of products. So there's that level, which is a must-have. You must be able to do all that stuff. But then there's another level, which we absolutely think that the packaging is part of the product. It is the product. And if you don't think of it that way, you lose a real opportunity to express yourself, and you lose a real opportunity to kind of communicate with your user and give an experience. And so we always want to do that, and we always want that unboxing moment, probably fueled by the fact that in our lives we've got real memories of unboxing things. Mm-hmm. And I think for some people that could sound like a materialistic thing, but I really don't think it is. I don't think it was about kind of it was about this kind of experience and this exciting thing that you're unboxing, whether it's a musical instrument or a camera or the first iPhone that you had, or it's just this like real magical moment where the opportunity is in front of you, and that's really what we want to kind of capture. So with all our products so far, we've got this kind of box fresh thing where you kind of peel away this tear strip, and it's forever changed, and only you have that experience. And almost the fantasy is that when you do that, you hear this kind of like this kind of vacuum of air coming out, so you really know, like some food or something, that it's really fresh and it's straight from the factory. So lots of thought around that. Like smartphones, there's this almost irresistible pressure to do what everyone else does because it makes so much sense in a rational way. It just makes sense. This is the cheapest way to protect your product in a neat way. It's industry standard. You're silly not to do this. And I guess that's what we are trying to challenge as well. We're kind of trying to challenge the sensible thing to do, because even if it is the sensible thing to do, maybe that doesn't mean it's always the right thing to do. So all of those things around packaging, we're very passionate about.
We do have to round out the episode, and I guess with the work that you guys do, there's a long lead time, and I'm sure you're working on phone 3, ear 3, all those sort of things. But without giving too much away, far in the future, what do you hope to achieve? Is it, are you looking towards, more seamless interaction, or are you looking towards something where products don't have as much of a physical presence and things so small that they don't even impact you at all? What is the dream for both of you that you would love to kind of experiment with or see happen?
I mean, we talk about this just all the time. We can't stop talking about it. Even when we're outside work or when we go for a drink, we always have lots and lots of ideas. I guess the main thing for us is working on things that are exciting, that feel like we're going to a new place. So there'll be loads of kind of crossroads we get to, where, do you want an ecosystem that is enclosed? Do you want an ecosystem that's open? Do you want an ecosystem of intelligent nodes, or do you want a brain with peripheral things connecting? There are all these kind of things we're talking all the time. I guess we'll always just be led by the, solving problems, the experience, and what's exciting, I guess, to us.
I agree with that. I kind of think a bit about how, like, design on its on the continuum of design to art, if you will, like design in its purest, most rational sense is sort of concerned with information and communication, and maybe art is concerned with emotion, and obviously there's a gradient there. Like sometimes design is expressive and sometimes art is communicative, and maybe it's political or something like that. But down the design end, I think as tech companies go, we are at the expressive end. We're not necessarily everything for everyone, and there's people that don't get it, and that's really, really exciting, because we want to speak to people who do get it, and I'm excited to make things for us, but also for those people. So I really want to stay opinionated as a company. I want to make ambitious things that don't solve every problem in our lives, and maybe aren't even the most efficient solution to a problem, but they are the most interesting and enriching solution. Or maybe it's not even about solving a problem. Maybe it's about having fun or connecting with people or loved ones, or having shared experiences. So I hope that whatever we do, and I don't really mind what it is, but I do want us to stay interesting, stay dangerous, and stay curious, and keep making things that aren't for everybody, but are really exciting for some people.
A beautiful answer, and thank you both. I think that it's so interesting. It's such a privilege to speak to you guys, because there is that consideration of, there's design language, there's experience, there's expectations of what people want, but there's also constraints around technology, what you have access to, how big it is, what size it is. There's also legal constraints or language constraints of things that you have to think about. But then the layer over the top of all of that is creativity and emotion and instinct and confidence, which kind of wraps it all up in a way that makes it feel like none of that other stuff exists, because it does very much. And that kind of boggles my mind a little bit, that you have to think about the battery and how much battery is in an earphone. But I don't think about that. I just enjoy the design. And I think that you guys have articulated it really well, and I think that people are really going to enjoy this conversation. And Adam and Tom from Nothing speak volumes. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate your thoughts and wisdom on this topic. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks,
really enjoyed it.
That is the episode for today. Tom, Adam, thank you so much, and we'll see everyone next time.